Some people will always pay up. The synth manufacturers know this. They have whole departments working on this scheme. How much can we charge before someone smells a rat?
You don't sell a seat to a guy for 79 bucks when he's willing to pay $3.79.
A lot of people will go batshit crazy over this video. They will be outraged. And they will reply in the comments with long essays about how little I know about synths, how little I know about how they operate, etc., etc. And these people, they often have a ton of synths in their home studios. So pay attention to these people and pay attention to how much music they make, which is actually very little. These people never make any music with their gear at all. They are gear worshippers. All the synths I'm about to advise against, they are all great synths. They can sound great, they can look great, they can feel great, and they're capable of doing the job in a gig, they're capable of doing the job in the studio, and they're all capable of giving you a good time. I'm not questioning their quality, I'm questioning the price. The sounds coming out of these very expensive hardware synths, well, they're easily replicated in the DAW as a VST instrument. Software emulation has come very far. And the big irony is that most of these big expensive hardware synths, they're just glorified VSTs wrapped in a nice box with lights, knobs and faders, if they have knobs and faders at all. And they're running an operating system, so these synths have more in common with a computer. How is this not a scam? Are you willing to pay $4,000 or $5,000 for this?
The illusion has become real, and the more real it becomes, the more desperate they want it.
One of the arguments I'm often met with is, hey Espen, I just click with this instrument. I love sitting there at night noodling and playing with this synth, and I get a lot of inspiration from it, and I can truly sympathize with that. I once clicked very well with a high-class escort, but I sure didn't want her to be my wife because of that. It did cost $4,000 or $5,000, but was it worth it? Well, maybe it is to you. I'm not here to judge. Different strokes for different folks, right? Maybe your kids are better served by you saving that money for their college funds, or maybe you should save up for your mother-in-law's taxidermy after she passes. Well, who knows? Anyways, and in no particular order, here are the synths I strongly advise against buying because of their price and because you're really being scammed if you buy them. The Oberheim OB-X8, made by Sequential. Sounds very good, is very expensive, and is running a software inside. It has digital envelopes, LFOs, etc. And you get a very, very good VST called the OB-XD, which sounds exactly the same for free. And what's up with that tiny display? It's big if you're a bug, but I'm not. I'm a big adult male. If you're paying for a synth with your kidney, I think you should have a nice fat display. And while we're at it, Sequential with their Prophet Rev 4, or any synth from Sequential for that matter, Sequential is always up there, costing a lot. Let me tell you a little story. In 1996, there was a movie called Daylight with Sylvester Stallone. And in that movie, he wore a watch, an Italian Panerai watch. Up until that point, Panerai had been living in obscurity, making good divers watches for a fair price. And with that movie, everything exploded. Today, Panerai is branded Swiss-made, and they cost tens of thousands of dollars. Perception is everything. If someone rich and famous is using a piece of gear, then everyone else think that this must be an exclusive thing, and the manufacturer will just up the price tenfold and people will pay it. Blue Horseshoe loves Sequential.
This painting here, I bought it 10 years ago for $60,000. I could sell it today for $600. The illusion has become real, and the more real it becomes, the more desperate they want it.
Inside a Sequential synth is very little in terms of electronics these days, but they compensate for that with that vintage knob. Any synth that has a vintage knob trying to make the oscillator sound wonky and vintage is a sure sign of something being a little afoot. Why can't they just make the oscillators go wonky once in a while because of heat, etc., and have a auto-tune button to put the oscillators in check for another half hour? That would be more fair, in my opinion. Let me tell you another little fun true story. There is a famous studio and live bassist. I will not mention his name, but you can easily Google this and find out yourself. And he has a little knob installed on all of his basses. The knob is not wired to anything, it just sits there on the body of the bass guitar. And when a producer tells him that, that take isn't exactly what I'm looking for, the sound isn't right, the bassist just makes sure that the producer sees it, and he just turns the knob a little bit, and he just plays the same thing again, and the producer will always give a thumb up and say, perfect. Again, perception is everything. We'll listen with our eyes and not our ears. Two other synths that are very expensive now, the Roland Jupiter X and the Roland Juno X. Both hardware synths wrapped in a nice shell with lights, knobs and faders, but inside are the Zen core engine from Roland, which is in fact a computer. So both of these shells are running VSTs, and Roland Cloud has both the Jupiter 8 and the Juno on their Roland Cloud service, and you can get emulations of these synths from before, some even for free. $2,000 or $3,000 for a Jupiter X or a Juno X, when you have the exact same sound in software, almost for free. Perception is everything. What about the Moog Muse? Well, Moog's always been associated with analog more than anything, fat basses, fat leads, that ladder filter, etc. The Moog Muse has digitally made contours and envelopes, etc. OS running inside that as well. And it's their flagship synth, their new flagship synth, but they've already discontinued the Moog 1, which was their flagship synth. And the companies in play, will it last? Will it prevail? I don't know. Is this the time to buy a nice fat Moog flagship synth? I don't know. Costing $5,000? Well, sounds from the Moog Muse can easily be replicated in software these days. So again, will you pay $5,000 for a Moog Muse now? Maybe discontinued in a couple of years? I don't know. You decide. And all of these things I've mentioned so far goes for a lot of other flagship synths as well. You have the Arturia Polybrute 12 costing $5,000–$6,000. You have the Udo Super 6 Gemini costing a lot. You have the Mayer EMI MD900, the Black Corporation with their clones, analog clones, and these are real jokers here, costing a lot of money, $6,000 or $7,000 for a little boutique module. You have the Melbourne Instruments with their Nina synth costing a lot just to have magneto motorized knobs. I don't know, sounds nothing special to me. And of course, Sequential again with their Prophet X already being discontinued. I have the synth. I no longer recommend this synth to anyone. It's riddled with bugs. The OS is a disaster. The sample and memory management is like the Titanic. It's going down and the synth freezes. It sounds great when it works, like all the other synths I mentioned so far, but it freezes up from time to time, and that's because it's running Linux. It's a computer. So the Prophet X, I definitely steer clear of that today, and the prices on the second-hand market is plummeting as well for the Prophet X. If you have it, hold on to it and enjoy it while it lasts, because it won't. So how about Third Wave from Groove Synthesis? Well, a PPG clone for $7,000. Well, Waldorf has their own PPG plugin and their microwave plugin doing the same thing for a fraction of the price. So paying $7,000 for a Third Wave? Well, this is the biggest scam of all, a typical boutique scam. How much are they willing to pay before they smell a rat? Third Wave, definitely on top of that list.
You don't sell a seat to a guy for $79 when he's willing to pay $379.
And if you think Behringer will save the day with their cheaper clones, you're quite right. You will get these sounds for a fraction of the price in hardware form. At least Behringer is upfront about what they're making. They're using through-hole technology, electronics, soldering. They're They're not trying to scam anyone in terms of prices. So in that way, they're completely honest about things. But the problem is, it will break down on you.
Enjoy it while it lasts, because it never does.
One synth that is relatively new, which I do recommend when asked, is the Hydra synth. It has nice displays, knobs and faders. It can do a lot of things in terms of sound, and it's very reasonably priced. Build quality is great, and this is definitely a synth I recommend when people ask me questions about, hey Espen, what synth should I get if I want to do this and that, and it has to be a hardware synth and reasonably new. I always recommend the Hydra synth. I'm not sponsored by Hydra synth in any way, by the way. I don't even have one. So there you have it. Most of the flagship synthesizers today, they are scams designed to take your money. You're not getting your money's worth by buying any of them. You should definitely go into software if you want the sounds. And if you do want some hardware and some knobs and faders, go for the Hydra synth instead. That is my top recommendation for a brand new synth today. As always, I'm Espen Kraft, and you're not. See you next time. Cheers.